Have you ever felt like you're stuck in this loop in your relationship? Just going round and round, having the same argument over and over?
Oh, yeah, like a broken record.
Yeah, exactly. Today, we're going to try to give you a little shortcut to break free from that. We're diving deep into Dr. Emerson Eggerich's Love and Respect, and it offers, well, a surprisingly simple way to look at these dynamics. You ready for this?
Yeah, hit me with it.
Okay, so the core idea here is that a wife, she has this deep desire to feel loved, right? And a husband, his big thing is this need for respect. So think of it kind of like a cheat sheet to your relationship, you know? You nail these two things and things can really change for the better.
I like the sound of that.
But miss them, and you might end up stuck in what Eggerichs calls the crazy cycle, which is not where you want to be. We're going to break this all down. The crazy cycle, ways to show love and respect. Hopefully you'll have a bunch of aha moments listening along. What do you think? Sound good?
Definitely. And what I find so interesting right off the bat is how Eggerichs takes all the complexities of relationships and boils it down to just these two basic elements, love and respect.
It does sound almost too simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, on the surface it does. But the real genius, the insight, is in how he shows us exactly how these needs, they play out in those everyday moments between husbands and wives. And this is a biggie. What actually happens when either of these needs isn't met.
Yes. And to make this deep dive easy to follow, we've broken it all down into 7 key points for you.
Nice. A roadmap for love and respect. I like it.
Exactly. Okay, so by the time we're done here, you'll understand the crazy cycle. And more importantly, how to spot it in your own relationship. The energizing cycle, that's the good stuff. How to move toward more positive interactions. Decoding love for her. We're talking about the CAUPLE principles, specific things a husband can actually do. Then, understanding respect for him, the CHAIRS principles, giving the wife some actionable steps. Then, communication, how to bridge the gap and actually understand each other. Unconditional love and respect, why that's the foundation for a good relationship no matter what. And finally, we'll talk about stepping into the rewarded cycle, which is like the secret weapon for getting through those tough times.
That last one sounds intriguing.
We'll get there. So look, it doesn't matter if you're about to have a tough conversation, trying to make sense of why you keep having the same fight or just wanting to connect better, this is for you. And don't worry, we're giving you the essential stuff without overwhelming you with a ton of details.
Perfect.
Okay, let's jump right into this first biggie, the crazy cycle. Take it away. What is this thing exactly?
All right, so the crazy cycle. This is like the heart of the problem in a lot of marriages. Think of it like a loop, a negative loop, where a husband, he doesn't feel respected by his wife. So what happens? He ends up acting unloving towards her.
Makes sense. Kind of a natural reaction.
Right, and of course she feels unloved, so she reacts in ways that he's going to see as disrespectful. And that, boom, fuels his initial feeling of being disrespected. And around they go.
Oof. Yeah, that sounds exhausting.
It is. What's key here, though, is not just to spot the pattern. It's to understand what's happening underneath.
Yeah.
Like, let's say he's withdrawing, right? Not trying to be mean. It might be his way of dealing with feeling disrespected.
Ah, so it's almost like a defense mechanism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that ends up making her feel even less loved, even more insecure. See, vicious cycle.
Okay, so we all need to understand this cycle, but what's the benefit for me, the listener? How's this going to help me?
Okay, the big one is recognition. You can actually start to see this pattern instead of just feeling frustrated. You're like, hold on, are we doing the crazy cycle thing again?
Light bulb moment.
Right, awareness is huge.
Yeah.
Second benefit, empathy. Realizing their reaction might be because they feel unloved or disrespected, not because they're just trying to pick a fight.
It's not personal, it's the cycle.
Exactly. And third, motivation. Knowing this cycle is bad news, it's going to push you to change things. Who wants to be stuck in that negativity? Nobody.
Makes total sense. So let's flip it. What if I don't get this? What happens then?
Not good things, honestly. The arguments, the tension, it's all going to keep going. You're stuck reacting to the symptoms instead of getting to the root cause.
And that means?
You start drifting apart. You feel less connected, less intimate, like you're on opposite teams instead of working together. And ultimately,
Yeah.
you end up feeling trapped, unhappy, not what anyone wants.
Okay, so recognizing the cycle, that's step one. But what are people actually doing about it? Like, what are some strategies couples use to break this cycle? You know, real life stuff.
So one thing couples try is to sit down and pinpoint their triggers. Like, what specific behavior or situation kicks off the crazy cycle for them?
So it's like, okay, every time I do this, you do that, and then it all goes downhill from there.
Exactly. And once you know the pattern, you can start to change it.
Makes sense. What else?
This one's powerful. Using the love and respect language. It's about saying, hey, when you do this, it makes me feel unloved, or I feel disrespected when. It's way better than attacking each other.
It takes a sting out, right? Like it's not an attack, it's how it makes you feel.
Exactly. And this last one, some couples even have a code word, like a signal. When they sense the crazy cycle starting, they use it to pause, take a breath, and then try again in a healthier way.
Wow, that's a clever idea, like a relationship emergency brake. I love that. Now, are there mistakes that other relationship advice makes that maybe misses this whole crazy cycle thing?
You bet. Sometimes the advice is all about changing how you act without dealing with the feelings underneath, like learning to communicate better but still feeling unloved.
Ah, so it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. It looks better, but it's not fixed.
Right. And then there's the whole blaming thing, like you're lazy, you're controlling, instead of realizing it might be because of unmet needs.
So judging the person instead of understanding the problem.
Yeah. And finally, sometimes the advice ignores how interconnected love and respect are. It's like you can't have one without the other.
It's a package deal. Okay, so for our listeners out there, what's the one thing they need to remember about the crazy cycle? How can they use this?
First off, awareness. Start paying attention. Really noticing those patterns. Talk to your partner about the crazy cycle. See if it makes sense to them.
Hey, honey, have you ever heard of the crazy cycle? It's totally us, right?
Exactly. When you're arguing, ask yourself, am I feeling unloved right now?
Mm-hmm.
Or could my partner be feeling disrespected?
That's so simple, but so powerful. Okay, so we talked about the problem, the crazy cycle. Now, let's talk about the solution, the energizing cycle. That sounds a lot nicer, don't you think?
Way nicer. Think of it like the crazy cycle, but in reverse. It's that positive spiral where the husband's love makes the wife respect him more, and her respect then makes him even more loving. It's like this beautiful upward spiral.
Ah, so it's like a self-fueling good vibe machine. I like it.
So what are the good things that come with this energizing cycle? Why should we all be striving for this?
Okay, first off, more good moments. You're not constantly tense or fighting. You're actually enjoying each other, being kind and respectful.
Sounds peaceful.
It is. And from those good moments, your emotional bond gets stronger. That feeling of intimacy, of connection, it just deepens.
That's the goal.
Totally. And finally, when you have this foundation of love and respect, even disagreements are easier to handle. You're more resilient. You can work through things without falling apart.
Makes sense. But what happens if you can't get this energizing cycle going? What are the downsides there?
Well, the bad news is you might stay stuck in that crazy cycle. Or even worse, things get worse. You might start feeling lonely even when you're together. That's so sad, like being alone together.
Exactly. And eventually, you both might just give up. There's no motivation to try anymore, no spark. It's a slippery slope.
So this energizing cycle, it's crucial. Now, how are people actually making this happen? What are they doing that's working?
It's all about being intentional. Husbands are making an effort to show love in ways their wives actually appreciate. Quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, things she really responds to.
So it's not just about like generic lovey-dovey stuff. It's about knowing what your partner specifically needs.
Yes. And wives are being deliberate about respect, valuing his opinions, thanking him for his efforts, trusting his judgment.
Showing him you see him and appreciate him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And successful couples, they prioritize this even when life gets crazy busy. They make time for love and respect, even when it's hard.
Because they know it's the foundation for everything else. Makes sense. Now, are there mistakes other relationship advice might make that could mess with this energizing cycle?
All the time. One is thinking everyone experiences love the same way. Husbands might be showing love, but not in the way their wife needs.
So it's like speaking the wrong language.
Exactly. Another one is thinking respect has to be earned. That's a trap. Unconditional respect is so important. If you're waiting for him to earn it, you're back in the crazy cycle.
Respect first, then the good stuff can flow.
Yes. And finally, it's about appreciating those small efforts. Don't overlook them. When you notice and acknowledge their effort, it encourages them to keep going.
Positive reinforcement. Okay, for everyone listening, how can you actually start creating this energizing cycle in your own relationships? What can you do starting today?
Be intentional. And remember, it's a two-way street. Husbands, show love in a way your wife gets. Wives, show respect in a way he understands. And remember, one good act leads to another. When you take that first step, it often inspires the other person to step up too.
It's like a domino effect of good vibes. Okay, let's get practical here. Husbands, listen up. To show love to your wives, Dr. Eggerichs has this awesome acronym, COUPLE. Let's break it down. What does each letter mean?
Awesome, right? So COUPLE, it stands for closeness, openness, understanding, peacemaking, loyalty, and esteem. These are like the 6 pillars of how a husband can make his wife feel truly loved.
Like a recipe for love. Okay, so husband, you're doing all these COUPLE things. What's the wife going to feel? What's the positive outcome here?
When a husband focuses on these 6 things, she's going to feel cherished, valued, and connected, like really connected. And the acronym makes it so clear for both of them.
It's like a guidebook.
Yes. And because her need for love is met, you know what? Less conflict, less arguing. Things just run smoother.
Ah, so love equals peace. Now, what if a husband doesn't get this? Or he tries but misses the mark? What are the downsides there?
If those needs, closeness, openness, all those things, if they aren't met, she might feel unloved, even neglected, like he doesn't really see her, doesn't get her.
That's got to be a terrible feeling.
It is. And what happens then? Resentment, frustration, distance. And when that happens, it's so hard to resolve conflicts. There's no foundation to work from.
So it all comes back to love. Okay, but how are husbands actually using the COUPLE thing? What does this look like in real life?
Well, we see husbands being intentional about closeness.
Yeah.
They're scheduling date nights, making time for real conversations, even if it's just for 15 minutes.
So it's about carving out that time.
Yep. And openness. They're sharing their feelings, really listening to their wives, trying to get her perspective.
Really trying to step into her shoes.
Exactly. And when there's conflict, they apologize. Try to find solutions together. It's not about winning, it's about the relationship.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes. And loyalty. They're supportive. They talk about her positively to others. And esteem. They value her opinions, appreciate her talents, acknowledge her worth.
It's about showing her, you matter to me, I see you. Now, are there mistakes other relationship advice might make that go against these COUPLE needs?
One big one is thinking that just being in the same room equals closeness. A husband could be home, but still emotionally distant.
Physically present, but mentally checked out.
Right. Another mistake is trying to fix her emotions with logic. She needs to feel heard first, understood emotionally.
So it's not about solving the problem, it's about listening to the feelings first.
Yes. And sometimes the advice focuses too much on avoiding conflict. But you can't just sweep problems under the rug. It's about working through them together.
Healthy conflict, that's the key. Okay, husbands, listen up. How can you start using the COUPLE stuff today? Give us the action steps.
Okay, think about each letter. Closeness. Plan that date night, even if it's just at home. Openness. Share your feelings. Really listen to hers. Understanding. See things from her side, even if you disagree. Peacemaking. Apologize when you mess up. Find solutions together. Loyalty. Be supportive. Talk about her well to others. Esteem. Appreciate her. Value her opinions.
Small steps, big impact. Love that. Okay, so for a wife to feel loved, it's COUPLE. Now, husbands, they need to feel respected. And guess what? There's an acronym for that too. Wives, it's CHARRS. Let's dive into this one.
All right, CHARRS. It stands for conquest, hierarchy, authority, insight, relationship, and sexuality. These are the ways a wife can make her husband feel truly respected.
Okay, so wives, you're doing all these CHARRS things. Husband, what does that do for you? What's the upside?
When my wife shows respect in these ways, it's huge. I feel valued, capable, appreciated. It validates me as a man, as a husband.
It's like she's saying, I believe in you. You got this.
Exactly. And you know what? It makes me want to love her even more. It fuels that energizing cycle we talked about.
Ah, so respect from her equals love from him. Now, what happens if a wife doesn't do these things or doesn't quite get it right? What's the downside there?
If those needs for conquest, hierarchy, all those things, if they're not met, the husband might feel put down, inadequate, like he's failing as a husband.
That's got to be tough on the ego.
It is. He might start to withdraw, become emotionally distant, and he might hesitate to take charge, to make decisions. He just doesn't feel respected enough to step up.
So it can really undermine his confidence. Okay, so how can wives show respect in those specific CHAIRS ways? What are some things that are working for couples out there?
We're seeing wives celebrating their husband's wins, big and small. A promotion at work, finishing a project, whatever it is, they're acknowledging it, supporting his goals.
So it's like being his cheerleader.
Yes, and hierarchy.
Yes,
They're
yeah.
respecting his role as the leader in the family, Not that her opinion doesn't matter, but they support his decisions.
It's about working together as a team with him at the helm.
Exactly. And authority. They value his opinions, ask for his advice, show him they trust his judgment, insight. They appreciate his ideas, his perspective, relationship. They nurture their connections, spend time together, show him he's appreciated as a partner. And sexuality. They're responsive, engaged. They make him feel desired and respected in that way too.
It's about showing him, I trust you, I value you, I want you. Now, are there mistakes other relationship advice might make that could mess with this whole CHAIRS thing?
Absolutely. Sometimes the advice might downplay the husband's achievements or focus too much on the wife's needs without acknowledging his need for respect.
So it's like she's inadvertently stealing his thunder.
Yeah, and publicly criticizing him, challenging his decisions in front of others, that's a big no-no. Super disrespectful.
It's about respecting him even when you disagree.
Right, and dismissing his way of thinking, like favoring intuition over logic all the time. It can make him feel like his perspective isn't valued.
Okay, wives, it's your turn. How can you start using CHAIR to show your husband respect, starting today? What are some easy things you can do?
Think about each letter. Conquest. Celebrate his wins. Hierarchy. Support his leadership. Talk through disagreements in private. Authority. Trust his judgment. Insight. Ask for his advice. Value his opinions. Relationship. Nurture your connection. Show appreciation. Sexuality. Be responsive and engaged.
Okay, but what does that actually look like? Give us an example.
Sure. Let's say he finished a big project at work. She could tell him how impressed she is with his success. That's conquest. If they disagree on a family decision, she can support his final call after they've discussed it privately. That's hierarchy. If they need to fix something around the house, she can ask for his advice. That's insight. To nurture the relationship, she can plan a fun weekend together. And for sexuality, she can initiate intimacy.
Small acts of respect, big impact on the relationship. Now, we've talked about how to show love, how to show respect. We've got these great acronyms. But how do we actually do this day to day? How do we make this work in real life?
You're right. It's about more than just knowing the concepts. It's about using them. And that's where communication comes in. It's the tool that helps us meet those needs for love and respect.
So we can know all the right things to do, but if we can't communicate them, it's all for nothing.
Pretty much. And remember, those gender differences in communication, they can cause a lot of unnecessary problems.
Oh yeah, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, all that jazz.
Exactly. So let's talk about why good communication is so important, especially within this love and respect framework.
Okay, sell it to us. What are the good things that come with good communication?
All right, so first off, fewer misunderstandings. You're both actively trying to understand each other. Second, better conflict resolution. You're not just arguing, you're working together to find solutions that work for both of you.
Less fighting, more problem solving. I like it. What else?
Deeper intimacy. When you communicate openly and respectfully, you create a space for vulnerability and connection.
It's like building a bridge between two hearts. Beautiful. But what if communication is bad? What are the risks there?
Oh, bad communication.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
More arguments, more tension. You can't express your needs, you don't understand theirs.
So you just end up feeling frustrated and misunderstood.
Exactly. And that leads to emotional distance, even if you're physically close. It's like a wall builds up between you.
So communication breakdown equals relationship breakdown.
Pretty much. And the worst part? Issues don't get resolved, so resentment builds up. That's really hard to come back from.
Okay, so we got to get this communication thing right. What are some practical tips couples are using to communicate better, especially around love and respect?
A lot of couples find it helpful to learn each other's love languages, from Gary Chapman.
Yeah.
And then there's the respect language, which goes hand in hand with those CHAIRS principles.
So it's like figuring out your partner's emotional dialect?
Exactly. And then you can tailor your words and actions to speak directly to their heart. Another great tip is using I feel statements, like I feel unappreciated when. It's way less accusatory than you never appreciate me.
It's less about blaming, more about expressing your needs.
Exactly. And of course, active listening, paying attention, trying to understand their perspective, reflecting back what you've heard. That's huge.
So it's not just about hearing the words, it's about really getting what they're saying, the emotions behind it. Now, are there mistakes other communication advice makes that misses the whole love and respect part?
Sometimes the advice is too general, like just compromise. But if you're feeling unloved or disrespected, compromise isn't going to cut it.
You got to deal with those core feelings first.
Exactly. And focusing on winning arguments, that's a communication killer. The goal is to understand each other and find solutions that work for both of you.
It's not a competition, it's a partnership.
Right. And some advice focuses too much on words and ignores nonverbal cues. But your tone of voice, your body language, that all speaks volumes too.
Actions speak louder than words, or at least just as loud.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, how can they start using communication to build love and respect in their relationships? What are some practical steps? Okay, first, get to know your partner's communication style. Are they direct, indirect? Do they need time to process? Then practice active listening. Really try to see things from their side, especially during disagreements.
Empathy, empathy, empathy.
Yes. And when you're communicating, focus on your needs for love or respect. Don't just criticize. Like, instead of nagging about chores, a wife could say, I feel overwhelmed and unsupported with all the housework.
So it's about expressing the need behind the complaint.
Right. And a husband, instead of saying, you're always distant, he could say, I feel unloved when we don't spend quality time together.
So it's about connecting the behavior to the feeling. Okay, we've talked a lot about showing love and respect. But Dr. Eggerichs takes it a step further and says this love and respect needs to be unconditional. Why is that so important?
That's the game changer right there. Shifting from conditional to unconditional love and respect is the key to breaking the crazy cycle. Think about it. When you know your partner loves and respects you no matter what, it creates this amazing feeling of safety and security.
Like a rock-solid foundation.
Exactly. And for people of faith, it reflects God's unconditional love, which adds a whole other dimension to it.
It's like reflecting a higher love. Okay, but what happens if love and respect are conditional? Like you only get it if you behave a certain way.
No, that's bad news. It keeps the crazy cycle spinning. It creates anxiety, insecurity. You're always worried about messing up, about losing their love or respect.
Like walking on eggshells all the time.
Exactly. And the relationship becomes all about performance instead of genuine connection.
So it's love with strings attached. No bueno. Now, how are couples actually living out this unconditional love and respect? What does it look like in real life?
It's about making a conscious choice. Like, even when they're hurt or frustrated, husbands are choosing to respond with love. Wives are choosing to respond with respect.
So it's not about feeling it in the moment. It's about choosing to act that way regardless.
Yes. It's about focusing on your own behavior, your own commitment to love and respect, not waiting for the other person to change first. And for people of faith, prayer is a big part of this. Asking God for help to extend grace and forgiveness, even when it's hard.
It's like tapping into a higher power to help you love and respect, even when you don't feel like it. Now, are there mistakes other relationship advice might make that could accidentally promote conditional love and respect?
Sometimes advice can unintentionally create a tit-for-tat mentality. Like, only show love if you're getting love back.
That's just a recipe for resentment, isn't it?
Absolutely. And focusing on fixing your partner instead of working on yourself. That's a big one.
So it's about looking inward, not outward.
Right. And for religious couples, advice that ignores the biblical call to love and respect unconditionally can miss a huge source of motivation.
Okay, listeners, how can you start cultivating unconditional love and respect in your own relationships? What can you do right now?
It's a decision, a commitment. Husbands, commit to loving your wife no matter what. Wives, commit to respecting your husband no matter what. Now, this doesn't mean you condone bad behavior.
Right. It's not about being a doormat.
Exactly. It's about choosing to respond in a way that doesn't escalate the conflict, a way that keeps the door open for positive change. Remind yourself of your commitment to the relationship. And remember, your actions speak louder than words. Like, even if your wife is criticizing you, respond with kindness. Try to understand what's going on with her.
So kill her with kindness, basically.
In a way, yes. And if your husband makes a mistake, talk to him respectfully, not critically. It's about choosing love and respect, even when it's hard.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the rewarded cycle. This is especially for couples going through really tough times. What's this all about?
The rewarded cycle, it's about finding a deeper reason to love and respect. A reason that goes beyond your own happiness. It's about seeing your marriage as a reflection of your relationship with God.
So it's like taking it to a spiritual level.
Exactly. It's about honoring God through your commitment to your spouse. And the idea is that enduring those tough times with love and respect, even when it's incredibly difficult, it brings a reward that goes beyond this earthly life.
So it's about playing the long game for a higher purpose. What are the benefits of seeing things this way?
He gives you a stronger foundation, a deeper motivation to keep going. You're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for something bigger.
It's like tapping into a source of strength that's beyond you.
Right. And it helps you persevere. It shifts your focus from your own happiness to honoring your faith, your commitment to God. And it often leads to a deeper reliance on prayer, on seeking spiritual guidance.
So it's about surrendering to a higher power and letting that guide your actions. But what happens if you don't embrace this rewarded cycle? What are the risks there?
If you don't have that faith-based motivation, those really tough times can feel overwhelming. You might be more likely to give up, to focus on your own unhappiness instead of the bigger picture.
So it's like losing that anchor that keeps you grounded.
Exactly. And you might miss out on the opportunity for spiritual growth that can come from going through those challenges and coming out stronger on the other side.
So you might be missing out on a blessing in disguise. Okay, how are couples who are grounded in their faith actually using this rewarded cycle when things get really hard? What are they doing?
Prayer becomes super important. Praying together for their marriage, asking God for guidance, strength, and wisdom. They also turn to Scripture, finding verses about love, respect, commitment.
So it's like finding a roadmap in those sacred texts.
Yes. And they often seek support from pastors or counselors who share their faith, who can offer guidance from a biblical perspective.
It's like getting spiritual coaching for your marriage. Now, are there mistakes other marriage advice might make that could miss this spiritual element for couples who are religious?
Sometimes the advice focuses only on secular solutions, which might not feel complete or helpful for a couple that's deeply rooted in their faith.
It's like trying to fix a spiritual problem with a worldly solution. It doesn't quite fit.
Exactly. And advice that prioritizes individual happiness over commitment can also fall short. For these couples, their marriage is more than just about personal fulfillment.
It's about something bigger than themselves.
Right. And finally, secular approaches might overlook the power of forgiveness, grace, and redemption, which are central to a faith-based view of marriage.
So it's missing that element of divine love and mercy. Okay, listeners who are going through a tough time and share this faith-based view, what can you do to step into this rewarded cycle? How can you find that strength to keep going?
Remember that your marriage has a deeper purpose. It's about honoring God. Let your faith guide your actions, especially when it's hard. Pray for your spouse. Pray for your marriage. Study what your faith teaches about marriage, about love and respect.
So immerse yourself in that spiritual wisdom.
Yes. And trust that even when it's difficult, there's a higher purpose at play. Enduring with love and respect, even when it's hard, it has a meaning that goes beyond what you can see right now. And remember, choosing love and respect even when your partner isn't, that aligns with God's love. It's a powerful act of faith.
So even in the midst of the storm, there's a higher love guiding you. Wow, we've covered a lot today. We've talked about the crazy cycle, the energizing cycle, COUPLECHAIRS, communication, unconditional love and respect, and even the rewarded cycle. It's like a whole toolkit for building a better relationship.
It really is. And what's amazing is how these simple concepts, when you understand them and use them, can completely transform your marriage.
Simple but powerful. So, listeners, take some time to think about everything we've talked about today. How does this apply to your relationship? Maybe revisit your own resources on love and respect, or check out Dr. Eggerichs' book.
It's all about learning and growing, right?
Have you ever felt like you're stuck in this loop in your relationship? Just going round and round, having the same argument over and over?
Oh yeah, like a broken record.
Yeah, exactly. Today, we're going to try to give you a little shortcut to break free from that. We're diving deep into Dr. Emerson Eggerichs' Love and Respect, and it offers, well, a surprisingly simple way to look at these dynamics. You ready for this?
Yeah, hit me with it.
Okay, so the core idea here is that a wife, she has this deep desire to feel loved, right? And a husband, his big thing is this need for respect. So think of it kind of like a cheat sheet to your relationship, you know? You nail these two things and things can really change for the better.
I like the sound of that.
But miss them, and you might end up stuck in what Eggerichs calls the crazy cycle, which is not where you want to be. We're going to break this all down. The crazy cycle, ways to show love and respect. Hopefully you'll have a bunch of aha moments listening along. What do you think? Sound good?
Definitely. And what I find so interesting right off the bat is how Eggerichs takes all the complexities of relationships and boils it down to just these two basic elements: love